Hello there. So I want to talk to you today a little bit about the care of pigs. In Ireland, we've got two main sectors: the commercial pig industry, which is a large part of our agricultural output, and then a much smaller number of pigs kept as backyard animals. From a vet nursing point of view, it's the latter you're more likely to be dealing with. So we'll talk about the kind of advice you'd have to give people in caring for these animals, and I'll also give you an overview of the commercial pig sector. So just some background information. The domestic pig is Sus scrofa, which is the name of the genus and species. There are hundreds of domestic breeds, all with different characteristics depending on what they were bred for. But the majority of pigs that are kept in the world today are commercial hybrids. They're crossbred animals that are selected for rapid growth rate and carcass quality. Just some terminology to keep in mind. The collective adjective for pigs is swine, so we can talk about, say, swine behaviour or swine fever, but we don't talk about swine as individual animals. Pig is the term we use for an individual animal. A boar is an intact adult male, a sow is a breeding female, a gilt is a female pig that hasn't had a litter of piglets yet. Just note that she's G-I-L-T, not G-U-I-L-T. A baby pig is a piglet, people something call them bonhams, which is the Irish word for it. Farrowing is giving birth to piglets, and then in the North American textbooks you'll see the term hog used. That's typically an adult pig that they're referring to. It's not a phrase we tend to use as much in this part of the world. In terms of breeds, I've given you a slideshow of the various breeds. There's lots of them, so I've just put up some of the more common traditional ones. If you're talking about clients keeping pigs outdoors, you generally need a traditional breed pig. They're quite hardy. The modern commercial farmed pig that you'll find in large numbers on intensive farming units, they're from very specialised genetic lines and they're selected to grow rapidly and have a good quality carcass. They're not very hardy and we wouldn't recommend keeping them outdoors. They just don't thrive well in that environment and it tends to be poor for their welfare. In terms of the pig industry in Ireland, it's our third biggest agricultural sector after milk and beef. However, because pigs are kept indoors in this system, it's not visible. So you'll see, cattle out in the fields, but you've probably seen very few pigs if you're travelling around Ireland. Most of our pig meat is exported. We do sell some into our domestic market, but in 2019 there were 1.6 million pigs in Ireland in basically just under 300 breeding herds with a breeding sow population of 143,300. And if you remember that, each sow can have 25 plus piglets a year, that's obviously a lot of animals, so we export an awful lot of pig meat. We're going to take a look first of all at a commercial pig system and how it operates, and then we'll contrast that with some backyard animals. So commercial pig farming is keeping pigs mostly for meat production. Now they are used for other purposes as well. There's some demand for pig skin. Also, some of the byproducts end up in the pharmaceutical industry, but generally it's pig meat. Pork is fresh pig meat and bacon is cured or salted pig meat. When it comes to rearing pigs, you need to keep them indoors and feed them a specialised diet and keep them warm. So your input costs are high. Farmers have to buy in pig feed and they have to generate or buy electricity to heat their animals' housing. So the costs are high. They need to produce a large number of animals to make money. So it's a numbers game. There are some outdoor reared units. You'll see that sometimes on products in the supermarket. This refers to units where the sows live outdoors in pens and have their piglets in that environment. Then once the piglets are weaned, they're finished commercially, so they're brought indoors and finished like any other commercial pig unit. In terms of pig production, we can divide it into three main stages. There's the breeding or farrowing system, which produces the piglets on the farm. Then we rear those weaned piglets to the point where they're ready to be fattened for slaughter. So growing and finishing refers to the growth rate of the piglets. Most Irish farms tend to have sows on site where they'll produce piglets. Those piglets are born on the farm and they're kept on that farm until they're ready to go to slaughter. So it's an all-in, all-out system. In terms of pig production, they're a bit different to most of the other farm animals we deal with in that each sow will produce a large number of small individual piglets. They're usually less than 2 kilos at birth and they grow very rapidly. They're weaned usually at about 4 weeks, by which point they're sort of somewhere between 5 and 10 kilos. Growth rates of up to nearly a kilo a day are fairly typical. So an animal that was 1.5 to 2 kilos at birth by the time it's 5 or 6 months old, it's usually 100 plus kilos and is ready for slaughter at that point. So it's a rapid production system, similar to lamb production. In terms of targets, as I said, it's a numbers game, so farmers have these targets they try and achieve to maintain profitability on their farm. So you're looking at trying to produce 26 to 27 piglets per sow per year from somewhere between 2.3 and 2.5 litres per sow per year. On average, you'll have 13 to 14 piglets born alive per litre, and you'll try to keep your mortality rates below 10%, so you'll aim to wean 11 plus piglets from each litre. So that just gives you some kind of general idea of the targets the sector has. You can get more information on the Teagasc pig herd performance data. I'll put a link to that on Moodle. And just to give you again a feel for the numbers, if you take a 1,000 breeding sow farm, so a farm with 1,000 breeding sows would be fairly typical. Those 1,000 sows will produce 26 to 27,000 pigs per year for slaughter, or about 70 plus pigs per day every day. So the farmer has to keep the pigs moving along. There's always more coming along behind them. And because it's the value per pig that the farmer gets isn't very high, so you're looking at a tight margin. Even a 1% increase in piglet mortality will lead to sort of 300 plus animals fewer to go to market. So that creates an economic impact for the farmer, and it's also obviously a welfare problem. So the whole industry is structured around trying to achieve high numbers, keep the animals as healthy as possible, and move them through the system as efficiently as possible. To look then at kind of the production cycle, pigs that are going to be kept for breeding, they'll reach puberty at about usually 6 to 8 months of age. To stimulate the gilts to come into estrus, they need to be exposed to boars daily. Boars, when they meet females, they'll produce saliva, and their saliva contains pheromones, which stimulates estrus in this animal. They have a roughly 3-week or 18 to 24 day estrus cycle. They'll come into estrus for 2 or 3 days during that estrus cycle. And generally they're going to be bred or AI'd 24 to 36 hours after the onset of estrus. And on average, they'll ovulate 14 to 16 oocytes per cycle. Pregnancy lasts for 3 months, 3 weeks and 3 days. And once the sow then produces her piglets and is lactating, she won't come into estrus. Once she's weaned, she'll come back into heat again 3 to 4 days later. So there's a hormonal effect there. Once they stop lactating, they'll start to cycle again. So they cycle all year round. They're not seasonal breeders. Just some photographs here. These are on a commercial pig farm. This is the AI unit. So the sows to be inseminated are kept in these pens. You can let the boar out and you can walk around the shed and interact with them. And that stimulates them to come into estrus and improves their fertility. These pens also allow the stock people easy access to the pigs to check if they're in estrus and inseminate them and so on.